Quick question for you. Is the Miami market actually slowing down, or are people just misunderstanding what is really happening? Because I'll tell you this market is completely unpredictable. There's all kinds of different things happening in this market. Some houses I think are going to sell quicker sitting, and others I think will never sell, seem to be moving fast. Right now, we are living in an incredibly unpredictable Miami market. In this video, I'm going to spend a little bit of time just giving you my perspective on what I'm seeing in Q1 and what I think we might see in Q2 of 2026 here in the Miami market. Now, bear in mind, this is just my thoughts, my ideas about what I'm seeing and hearing from my team and from my fellow people around Miami, and that is the insight I'm hoping to give you in this video. If you don't already know by now, I'm Riley Smith. I run a large real estate team right here in Miami. Been doing this for almost 25 years and feel like I have a really good pulse of what's going on in all different pockets and all different price points in Miami. And so in this video, we're going to break all that down for you and give you my insider tips. Before we get into all of the big picture stuff, I thought I'd take a minute and talk about 3 very different, interesting key sales that we had here at the Riley Smith Group. Each one has its own little story. I'm going to tell you about that first. The first property I want to talk about is listed in Bay Heights. House set in a great part of Coconut Grove, in the north of Coconut Grove. It was a 4-bedroom house with a pool. It had a certain interesting flair to it. When you open the front door, the high ceilings were the first thing that caught your attention. But it was also a house that right away you knew, if I spend some money on this house, I think I'll have a little gem right here in Coconut Grove. This is a property that we had on the market for a very long time. The seller wasn't exactly sure where he wanted to go or what he wanted to do with his life. So this property was there. We had a lot of offers coming and going. What was very interesting was everything around him in the neighborhood was changing so fast that it was kind of stuck between land value and renovation value, or actually move-in ready value. And none of the buyers could really figure this out. But after quite a long period of time, we finally got the price right, where we were able to sell the house to somebody who's going to renovate it, pay a little bit more money than all of the offers that we got for land. So what this tells me about the market is that right now land is so hot that even houses that are livable, the developers and people wanting to build their own homes are willing to almost pay the same price as somebody that's willing to renovate or live in the home. This market is really tricky, and it took us quite a while to navigate this. But once the seller was finally ready to move on in his life, we got it at the right place and we finally got it sold. So the second interesting property that we sold in the first quarter that I want to talk about is a unit at Park Grove, 19B. This unit is an amazing unit. If you know Park Grove, you know it's probably the best community in Coconut Grove right now, and I think one of the best apartment condo buildings in all of South Florida. So the B Tower has spectacular views, but the challenge that this apartment had was that right in front of it on the left-hand side, there's a brand new Four Seasons going up. And this is the challenge that we had here. It was really interesting because, of course, if the Four Seasons was already built, you probably wouldn't even miss the view. And you'd be staring at Hugo Colombo's gorgeous building that he's going to build, and it might have been an actual asset. But because it was not built yet, only people can imagine all the construction and how much they were going to lose the view that was already there. And this was our biggest challenge. But the owner was super helpful with us in this challenge. They helped us create 3D models where you could see a picture of exactly where the Four Seasons were going to be. And it was like thinking outside the box, I really think, is what got this apartment sold. And if you know Park Grove, you know this is a one-of-a-kind apartment. I think if you take this one as an example, it really is a sort of a good education into buyer behavior, because absolutely there is no doubt in my mind that this unit is probably going to be worth a lot more than it's sold for once the Four Seasons is completed and you're looking at that beautiful building and you no longer have the perspective of the lost view, and you still have an amazing view looking out straight over all the boats in Coconut Grove. So I think what it tells you about buyer behavior, sometimes buyers, they just can't imagine what the future is going to be like or what things are going to look like. When we had those pictures made and you could see exactly what was going to happen to your view, it seemed to help put all those things in perspective. The last house I want to talk about is one of my favorite houses in Coconut Grove. It's located right inside the gated Ponciana and 4-way lodges. If you know anything about South Coconut Grove, you know this location is amazing. It was built by a developer and shortly after bought by my clients, who were the only people to live there. As soon as you open the door, you could see right through these amazing sliding glass doors that opened up to an incredible backyard. And if you know the house I'm talking about, it's right there on Ponciana on the right-hand side. It had an incredible oak tree sitting in the middle of it. So for me, every time I got to show this house, I always felt at peace. I could walk over to do the showing. We did a lot of showings. This house took a little bit of time to get sold because our sellers weren't exactly sure where they were going to go, and we tested the market for quite a while. But once they figured out their final end spot and it finally got built, we got the house priced just right. And as the market shifted towards our favor, we were able to get an amazing buyer who happened to live just down the street in the community and just wanted to downsize and get into a smaller home. But this home was one of my absolute favorites. I loved working with these families. At the end, I think it was a win for everybody involved. On this one, I think we can talk a bit about seller behavior, because this is kind of a pattern that we've seen over and over again. A lot of our sellers maybe come on the market, price a little high because they're not sure where they want to go. Or they don't even come on the market because because they're not sure where they want to go. And this is something we've had to overcome as realtors here in South Florida for quite some time now. Seller behavior and biggest problems that they have is if we're staying local, where do we go and what are we going to do? Once we get that problem solved, and that's exactly what happened here, then it seems like the sellers can wrap their head around letting go of their home and moving on with their future. Let me give you a little snapshot of Q1 in the entire Miami market. The median sales price last year this time was $735,000. The median price this year was $815,000. So we saw a little more than a 10% gain in median sales price. Total closed sales was down just about 3% from 630 to 612. Not very big difference there. Days on market though, however, is creeping up. Last year this time, days on market were running about 90 days. Now we're looking at about 101. So it's about a 13% increase. And I think that number is probably going to slowly keep ticking up. When I'm looking at these numbers, I think what they tell us is the Miami market is still a lot healthier than people think. And I think some people are thinking it's been slowed down. And I think it has been slow for the last couple of years. But I do think there's a new energy in the market in Q1. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and not just the stats, but how we feel as realtors and what we're seeing going on in just a second. Q1 this year, 2026, was something I have not seen in a very long time. I think for us at the Riley Smith Group, it was our best Q1 in maybe 5 years. Finally, after 2 years of seeing a very stagnant and very tough, challenging market, Q1 for us, a lot of things started to happen right. There was a new energy. Of course, our season is always the first quarter. It's usually our best season of the year. We had a lot more people coming to Miami. Miami was on fire. The Miami Open, all kinds of different things happening in Miami at the time. And I felt as we were getting out of the holidays and getting ready for January, that this was going to be a special Q1, especially in some of the other neighborhoods like Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Key Biscayne, Pinecrest. We really saw a lot of activity, but there was a lot of interesting things inside of what happened in Q1 I want to break down for you. By my perspective, what really got Q1 off and running and what the impact will be later is the absolute high-end market was on fire. We saw more 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 million sales. Every time you read the new deal, they were talking about a $100 million buyer coming to Coconut Grove or Coral Gables or even on the Venetian Islands. The narrative around here was the ultra rich were back and coming to Miami in droves, and I really do think that was happening. So I think that part of the market was absolutely on fire and will sort of carry some of the market going forward. But there was also another section of the market that was also on fire, and that was the lower end market in the single family home. When I say lower end, it's not really lower end down here anymore. I'm talking probably $1 million to $3 million. It seemed like that was a sweet spot for a lot of deals. There was a little bit of hole in the middle, and I think the middle struggled a little bit, but the two opposite ends of the market, the lower end single family and the higher end single family, were absolutely on fire in Q1. I also think some interesting trends are happening in Q1. More and more new development, new buildings are coming online, and especially in some of the neighborhoods, there's a lot more new construction for sale, and that is starting to get gobbled up. And I think that is certainly what a lot of the buyers coming to Miami are looking for. My little concern about going forward is we may have too much new construction inventory, but certainly that led to a very robust Q1. As I look at how Q2 is shaping up, I can tell you already there's going to be a tremendous amount of closed sales happening in Q2 because of the energy that I just saw in Q1, right, that we were describing. So I think we're going to have a very good statistical Q2. I do also think the momentum is going to carry over. We just took a little break right now for Easter break on either side. There's usually a little slowdown, but I expect next week we'll start to see more pending sales coming back in again. And I have a good feeling that Q2 is going to stay super strong. You have to remember in South Florida, Q1 and Q2, those are our bread and butter markets. So that early winter market, and then we slide into the spring market. If you want to sell your home and you want to make a deal or you want to make a move down here, it's probably going to happen sometime between January and July. As always, Q2 is super critical to our real estate market and our landscape. And I think that this year we're going to be in for a pleasant surprise. I think one of the things that has been driving this Q1, Q2 movement that I'm seeing is that we are getting slowly, painfully slow, better inventory. We're getting new stuff coming on the market. We're getting price reductions that are helping our inventory pools look better. So I think the inventory is rising slowly. Also, I think that's why you see days on market rising. But I think as inventory has risen, buyers are starting to have slightly more options than they ever had before. And I think that hesitation that they had before is starting to wear off, and they're jumping back into the market because now they're starting to see multiple options. They don't just have to buy one house. They have several houses, or one condo, they have several condos. I think, of course, as we go through the year, the inventory level in the condo market will continue to outpace the inventory level in the single family market. There's just so much more coming online, and there's just so many more condos available. So I think that's a natural progression. But I do think, and I am optimistic, that the single family market and in some areas the townhouse market is going to keep seeing an increase in inventory, which I think is going to help keep drive sales all the way through summer. So whenever I do one of these videos, I cannot help but bring it back to Coconut Grove. If you know me, I'm born and raised here. I live here. This is my hometown. This is our home base. So all things real estate start for us in Coconut Grove. So I would be remiss if I didn't break down this market a little bit for you here in this video. So right now as we sit, you have to bear in mind Coconut Grove is a very unique area. We have our own metrics, so these numbers are mine and mine alone. Everybody might have different numbers, but because our zip code does not just stay confined in our little town, it is important to break out all the information. So my information may not jive with what you see on Zillow and other places, but I promise you, I've been doing this a long time and I have a pretty good handle on the information. One of the things we're seeing right now is finally the inventory in the single family house market is starting to creep up. There for a while, if you've been following these videos, we've known that the inventory is all-time low. We've never recovered from COVID. But surely, we're starting to add a couple extra homes every week. Just not that long ago, I reported that we were at an all-time low, something like 70 homes available. Bear in mind, there's 4,000 in Coconut Grove and only 70 were on the market. Today, we're looking at 89, 90, somewhere in that range. And I know there's a bunch more coming on. So I think the inventory in the Grove is starting to build, and that is going to be super helpful for what's happening here in the Grove. Again, the Grove is probably the hottest market in Miami. The number of condos and high-end luxury sales are happening in the Grove are at an all-time level. And the narrative around the country about what's going on in Coconut Grove, certainly in the press with all of the big names that we've been hearing, probably only going to keep us going forward. I think the condo market is strong. The townhouse market is very strong. The townhouse market is still limited in supply, and we still need more townhouses to meet the demand because, of course, that's where the walkability is, and that's really a lot of what people want right now. But I think in general, the Grove is getting healthier slowly but surely. Bear in mind, we had 200 to 250 listings at any given time pre-COVID. So we are a long way from being back to normal and healthy, but I think the signs are we're trending in the right direction. An interesting fact to look at, though, when you look at the Coconut Grove landscape, if you want to buy a new home, right now, the median home is somewhere almost around $4 million. And if you look at really what's happening in Coconut Grove, we're really being taken over by new construction. About a third of the homes on the market now are either built or going to be built in the very near future. And as developers are racing to capture that really small niche market of out-of-town buyers wanting to buy new construction, we're seeing more and more of that come on. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out going forward, but it is an interesting fact about how much the new construction is dominating Coconut Grove landscape today. As we expand outside of Coconut Grove and just look at what's happened in some of the different areas, I do think there's some areas of concern. For me, particularly, Pinecrest, I think might be a place where you have to watch the inventory levels. They've grown quite rapidly, especially in that new construction category that we talked about. And I think there are a lot of options that people didn't have before. So that might put a little pressure on pricing in Pinecrest. I think Coral Gables in general, it is such a diverse community with so many different kind of properties. I see that market staying pretty stable and moving probably actually pretty healthy going forward. Something interesting to watch is going to be new development in Coral Gables. This is not something that we've talked about a lot over the years because Coral Gables has historically been kind of slow on the new development front. But more than ever, I'm seeing more houses go down. I'm seeing more new construction, and I'm seeing a lot more spec houses being built in Coral Gables. Before, we did not see anything new, probably in the last 30 years in Coral Gables, that wasn't built for an end user. But all of a sudden, the spec builders have moved in, developers have moved in, so we're seeing more and more homes torn down. We're seeing more new construction coming up in Coral Gables, which I think is going to be really well received by the public. Also, I think Coral Gables is finally landing some of their new construction condos, especially near Merrick Park and Miracle Mile. There's a bunch of new condo buildings that are going to be coming online by the end of the year. And I think whenever that happens, you do see it increases inventory in that market, as some of those people were investors and they're going to want to get out once they're done. So I think if you watch Coral Gables closely, you're going to see a slight shift in its energy and this new construction coming to market in the next few months and few years ahead. Now let's flip it for a second and look at it from a buyer's perspective. I think right now is still a very good time to get in and get a property in Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Pinecrest, or any of the greater Miami areas that we like to talk about. I still feel very strongly that we're undervalued and that there is still a wave of momentum that's going to continue to carry us. Our politics are our politics one way or another, but right now they're friendly for a lot of people who have a lot of money. I think that's helping drive our market, and I don't think it's going to slow down. Of course, we have the weather, and certainly when it's cold up north, everybody wants to be down here. As a buyer, I would not be concerned about buying into this market right now because I think we have a pretty long runway ahead of us with a lot of good things shaping up. Miami is certainly not the sleepy Miami that we all used to remember. It has become a booming metropolitan area. We've got all kinds of things. We've got the sports, we've got the arts, we've got the boating lifestyle. We've got all kinds of events happening here in Miami now. So I think if you're a buyer, I think you should feel very confident that whatever you're buying in Miami is probably going to continue to go up. Matter of fact, Miami itself has pretty much gone straight up for the last 50 years, with the exception of a little dip when we had a great recession, of course. It's a safe bet that Miami is going to be a good place to call home, a good place to make an investment. And if you're a buyer, I would be very excited about getting in this market now, wherever you land. If you're a buyer and you're thinking, where do I have some leverage in the market? I would say certainly if you have the appetite for it, the older condo buildings are where you're going to find some serious deals. Ever since the building collapsed and a horrible thing happened here, the whole condo landscape has changed. beach. Fast forward a couple years, the new rules, the new regulations, the associations, and all the problems that they're having. Some can't even get financing, some can't get insurance. There's a lot going on there. But if you're savvy enough and you're comfortable with navigating that, I think you're going to find some sellers who just give up and just want to get out. And I think there are a lot of opportunities, because I do feel like over time, the city, the government, and everybody else is going to get this figured out. They're going to streamline the process. These buildings are going to get back online. You're going to be able to get financing once this is over. I do think there'll be another rush back into some of these buildings, because some of them are located in amazing areas. They're just taking a hit because they're a little bit older. But once they've been recertified and everything's been taken care of, I think it's going to be a very good investment going forward. But I think right now and in the near future, maybe the next year or so, you're going to see a pretty strong dip in that market. So if you're a buyer, probably have some leverage there. If you're not familiar with the Miami market, there's so many pockets. We can't possibly cover them all right now. But what's happening in our landscape, of course, we have the coast and we have the Everglades. So we have pushed as far south as the Keys and we've pushed as far north as Broward County. So if you look at Dade County, we are just about done with new big plots of land. Homestead, for example, the Redlands in that area where there was always so much land, you can't drive 5 feet with bumping into a construction site where they're building the last big sets of tract homes. If you go out west, you've got Doral, and that has exploded, right? Doral's got his back right to the Everglades. It's not going to go any farther now, but I think that buildings are going to be infilled there. What's interesting about what's happening in Miami, of course, is the center of Miami, the downtown core, the Brickell area. Certainly the areas around us here, Coconut Grove, have always been on fire. But I think also if you look at the rest of Miami, everything in Miami has gone up with what's happened with COVID and bringing so many new people here. And I just think right now the Miami market is in a good place and it's probably going to get even better. I'll catch you on the next one.